Welcome to the LongBox Paradox, episode 26. I'm Dan, and I got a couple curated picks for this week. One of them, though, I'm going to warn you at the end, is for Walking Dead 192, and I can't really talk about it without doing major spoilers, particularly for the spec value and the sheer amazement of kind of what they did in this issue, which I am sure some people didn't think they'd actually ever get to. But I'm going to start out right away with, from Marvel Comics, Black Cat #1 by Jed Mackay and Travel Foreman. First thing I'm going to say about this book is the covers are really good. I did not like the A cover by Campbell. I thought it was a little too basic and a little bit too much of his reuse pose. The Art Germ cover is fantastic, and I want to say Comic Mint or Unknown Comics had their own exclusive. I can't remember who the artist was, but it was right on par with the Art Germ cover. There's a Scotty Young one, of course, because it's not a Marvel #1 without a Scotty Young cover. So on top of that, Travel Foreman's art. I've seen his art before, and I've liked it for the most part. Something felt off about it in this issue. It might be a different colorist than normally used, but he could have changed his art style a little bit. It just looked off, and I can't put my finger on why, and it kind of distracted me while reading it. For the most part, this issue was pretty basic for a #1. Does the setup, it introduces the players. Again, the art distracted me a little bit. If you had been reading Spider-Man, you'll know one of the characters from the Thieves Guild, Odessa, so she plays into it. It's a heist issue, and again, it introduces her new crew. And honestly, like, I'm trying to be a little bit more gentle with it because it's an issue 1. But it really wasn't that exciting or interesting. It just kind of was there. And there was nothing redeeming about the writing or the art to really make me overlook one or the other. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 because it moved my needle in either way. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It just was there. So I'm hoping issue 2 is a little bit more to it. The Black Fox, Black Cat's father, shows up at the end. That's kind of the cliffhanger. There is a couple of action scenes in it during their heist. There is a splash page with her calling people mooks. Yeah, the word mook, it still never translates well into my head. It's so bad Jersey Italian. I'm Italian, and I used to live near Jersey, so I've heard it a bunch. So yeah, 5 out of 10. Pick it up for the covers, but if you're looking for a read, I don't think you're going to get what you want out of it, but it also could be that my palate has changed from these type of books over the years, and I'm looking for a little bit more substance to it, and I did not get it out of this book. So, going to move on to one that I honestly only picked up for the cover, but ended up actually really liking. It was very much an improvement, and that is from DC Comics, Dceased #2 by Tom Taylor with art by Trevor Hairsine. First thing I will say, I absolutely did not love Trevor's art in issue 1. I also thought the story did not move very well, and I pretty much thought I was going to be quitting that book. It kind of bugged me enough. This one, Hairsine's art, I don't know if it's a different inker or colorist, but it's much, much, much improved. The story moved better in this. Starts out with Aquaman going onto a ship, and there's a ton of infected. We get a scene with Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Hal camping. Hal gets bored, checks his phone, and becomes an infected Green Lantern. And Dinah basically kills him, and becomes a Green Lantern. Clark ends up going out there and tells Dinah she has to keep the Green Lantern King ring. They need it. The Daily Daily Planet. Most of the buildings infected. Of course, a news place would have internet and everything there. Batman has been infected. We see at the end, and he's in Mr. Freeze's costume, trying to slow it down. And he tells them what they're gonna have to do. And Alfred's sitting there with a shotgun. This issue moved a lot smoother. It kept you involved. It gave you some great set pieces, and the cliffhanger is pretty awesome. And it was good that they kind of made up for what I hated in issue 1. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Again, I don't know what changed in Hairsine's art, but it was much improved. And now that the story is going and the setup's gone, it flowed freely and got to where it needed to be. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. And considering how disappointed I was with issue 1, I'm glad that it got there and I can continue to buy and read it. The B cover, horror homage cover by Yasmin Putri was Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was phenomenal. I believe there was a Martina Bizarro cover as well. Both of those covers I liked way more than the A cover, but that's kind of the whole DC thing lately of the B's being better than the A's. Really wanted to get to Green Lantern and Justice League today. Unfortunately, I got my books a little later than normal, so didn't get to it, but I want to spend some time on this last book, and that is Walking Dead 192 from Image Comics. And again, as I said in the front, there's going to be a lot of spoilers. If you haven't read 191 or 192, you're warned right now. So 191 ended with Sebastian, the mayor of the Commonwealth's son, coming in and shooting Rick. This picks up right where that left off, with Rick being shot, and he's kind of like looking at Sebastian down, and then Sebastian keeps plugging him. And the dialogue's gone for a while, and it's just Rick's body laying there in the bed. There's a couple of shots of showing different angles of him laying there dead. And then we cut to Carl. Carl's having good morning. He rested well. He's enjoying the Commonwealth, as I said. Once it cleans up, it's a pretty great place. And he goes to Rick's place. And when he opens the door, there's Rick in his boxers as a zombie, and Carl plugs him right in the head. And then just drops to the floor, just catatonic almost. This is the first issue in a while that I felt Carl, the gravity of the world finally got to him. And honestly, I don't think I had really seen that since when he lost his eye and then when he killed Shane way back in the very beginning of the series. And I've kind of for a while felt that since All Out War, it shifted from being Rick's story to being more about Carl. And it's Carl's story now. And in this issue, Carl has a Negan moment that I thought was pretty great. And after the mayor, I can't remember her name, she finds out that her son did it. She asks Carl not to hunt him down and kill him, and he says, well, what are you doing? And she said, I'm locking him behind bars. He goes and visits Sebastian in jail. And Carl basically says, I'm going to come in here constantly to see your misery. And if you ever get out, I will hunt you down and kill you. And the end of the conversation is where I felt like it got Negan-like, where he's kind of antagonizing and he says, like, ta-ta. And he gathers up the body. Him and Michonne have a conversation. and he's crying a lot, and that's normally you lose your parent, and considering now he's had to bury both parents, it's gruesome, it's brutal. And again, the weight of everything's finally crumbling upon him. And as they're riding back to Alexandria, he falls off the horse, and he's crying, and he said, I don't think I can do this anymore. I just can't. And they show everybody who was coming back to Alexandria with them for the funeral and such, and little profile shot of everybody. I thought this was a pretty powerful issue. They haven't had one of these in quite a while, or at least in my head, I haven't felt it. Honestly, the Commonwealth has kind of been a treading water storyline that it kind of lulled you into falling asleep while reading it, where, finally something happens, you're like, holy shit, I didn't think they'd actually do it. And I don't know how much the show plays into it, or the fact that there was declining sales on this book, that at one point it was a 90K selling book, and it was down to the 40s. But either way, this book became a quick spec flip overnight. It was up to $25 at one point. Worth totally, now I think, changes the complexion of the book, because it's been about Rick for so long. Even when Rick hasn't been really in the forefront that much, now it's Carl's book, or someone else is going to step up and take that spot. Weirdly, Rick dying did not emotionally hit me in any way, because I don't want to say he wore out his welcome, but his character kind of faded more into the background as the book went on. And as I said, it became Carl's book. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. And most of the strongest parts had to do with Carl. And I think that's what kind of I need from this book now. And again, if you did not heed my warnings and watch this and then are mad at me for spoiling it, you were warned. So I'm going to leave that. As far as spec goes for this week, I think there was another 1 in 25 Agents of Atlas number 3 variant, and I really like those Marvel's 25th anniversary covers. The Deadpool one by Adi Granov with Vision and Scarlet Witch I thought was fantastic, and also the Phil Noto X-Men one and Uncanny X-Men. It's got a pretty low print run now compared to what it used to sell, so it might be a pretty decent spec. Aside from that, there was some fairly good reads. I still need to read Justice League again. Supposedly this is pretty much sets off Scott Snyder's You're the Villain story. So I'm curious to see that. Nothing horrible must have happened in Batman 72, because nobody texts me about it overnight, so that's usually a good sign. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for joining me. If you missed it or interested, the live stream I did about Heroes in Crisis with Natalie, DC Comic Queen, I felt it was a lot of fun. We talked about the good and the bad. I thought it was pretty fair and balanced. So in the description, I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that video if anyone is interested. It is an hour long, so there was a lot talked about, and we kind of went off the rails a couple of times and might have talked about Green Lantern number 7 and Doomsday Clock. So with that being said, comment, like, share, subscribe, and happy hunting. Good night.